ברוכים הבאים לפודקאסט של שפות-שלי, בית ספר לאנגלית ושפות נוספות. אני אריאל, שמח להיות כאן איתכם כרגיל. I hope you guys are having a successful week. יש לנו נושא מאוד מעניין היום. We have a pretty interesting topic. We're going to talk about a murder mystery about the Sherman family. This should be some good listening for you guys and understanding, as well as אוצר מילים חדש. אז הולך להיות פרק מעניין. תודה רבה כמובן כרגיל למפיקים שלנו. Good to see you guys as well. שבוע טוב לכולם. And let's get started with about the Sherman murder. I'm going to go into details about it, and it's a very, very interesting murder mystery. So at first, real estate agent Elise Stern thought it was a prank, a joke. Who would prop up two mannequins in a fake murder scene by the pool, where she was trying to sell this Toronto mansion, this huge, amazing villa in Toronto. The prospective buyers, who were being asked to pay $7 million for this sprawling luxury home, seemed annoyed by the stunt too. It was very weird, a very strange situation to put mannequins. They were far away and the heads were elevated and hanging on the railing leading into the pool. But as a step closer, a sickening realization crept in. There weren't mannequins at all, but Barry and Honey Sherman, the billionaire owners of this property. So there weren't mannequins. Mannequins זה סוג של בובות. הם בהתחלה חשבו שזה בובות, אבל זה לא היה בובות. זה היה בעצם הגופות של המיליארדרים, Barry and Honey Sherman, meet Toronto, Canada. The couple had been left in a gruesome position, seated side by side with belts looped around their necks and fastened to the railing behind them. They're dead, Mrs. Stern wailed to the emergency dispatcher. The Shermans were well-known philanthropists who mixed in Toronto's elite circles and ran one of the country's largest pharma corporations. But 5 years after the bodies were discovered, the murder of one of Canada's richest couples remains unsolved. Toronto police are now closer to an arrest, and a slew of detectives, lawyers, pathologists who were privately hired by the Sherman family are yet to crack the case. Desperate for answers, the couple's son, Jonathan, is now offering a $35 million reward for any tip that leads to the arrest of his parents' killer. לשכם, כרגע יש בעצם $35 מיליון reward פרס כדי לדעת מי הרג את ההורים שלו. ג'ונתן שרמן, זה מה שהוא מציע בעצם, כדי לדעת מי הרג את ההורים המיליארדרים שלו מקנדה. Closure will not be possible until those responsible for this evil act are brought to justice. These are the words of Jonathan Sherman. But finding the murderer among an abundance of potential suspects may prove tricky. The mystery has turned siblings against each other and confounded amateur sleuths. Even Jonathan himself has been accused of involvement in his parents' murder, a claim he has vigorously denied. So let's talk a little bit about Barry Sherman. He was a ruthless tycoon. No one becomes a billionaire without making a few enemies along the way. Barry Sherman, famous for the ferocious rise through the pharmaceutical industry, once admitted that plenty of people wished him ill, or, in other words, to say more simply, wanted him dead. They hate us. They have private investigators on us all the time trying to investigate. The thought once came to my head, why didn't they just hire someone to knock me off? He said in 2001. These are the words of Barry Sherman. זה המילים של Barry Sherman. רק להגיד לכם, לא הבנתם מה זה to get knocked off. knock זה בעצם כמו knock על הדלת, לדפוק בדלת. To get knocked off זה ביטוי שאומר בעצם להירצח, שהורגים מישהו. זה צורה להגיד, he got knocked off. For $1,000 paid to the right person, you can probably get someone killed. Perhaps I'm surprised that it hasn't happened. זה מה שברי שרמן אמר, הוא היה מופתע שזה לא קרה עדיין. At his funeral, he was remembered as a fiercely loyal friend, father, and CEO who relished a good fight. In 1974, he took the proceeds of the sale of his late uncle's pharmaceutical company and set up a ruthless version of the business. With Apotex, he undercut competitors by making generic versions of their drugs, making himself very rich and a very controversial man. הוא הקים את החברה של פארמה שקראו לה אפוטקס, שהייתה בעצם מוכרת pharmaceuticals, תרופות, במחיר הרבה יותר זול מה שהיו מציעים אז באותה תקופה בקנדה. כמובן היה בן אדם מאוד מאוד עשיר, אבל היה לו גם הרבה אויבים, וגם he had many people who thought this guy was controversial. He took advantage of Canada's pharmaceutical laws, manufacturing and selling a cheap version of a new drug years before its patent expired, and battling the rage pharma giant in court. If we're thieves, we're Robin Hoods, he liked to say when accused of stealing other people's ideas. But not everyone believed Sherman robbed Big Pharma to give to the poor. He was a deplorable human being. University of Ottawa law professor Amir Attaran said days after Sherman's death, Canadians pay more for generic drugs than almost every other country. He sought to manipulate our system to enrich himself and impoverish Canadian patients who used this drug. These are according to the words of Amir Attaran. He was really against Barry Sherman. He was saying that this made the Canadians basically, the general population pay more for generic drugs and made it more expensive than any other country for them to be able to buy medicine, to buy pills. We call them drugs as well in English. But Sherman did not just wage war against his business rivals. In the months leading up to his death, he was locked in a court battle with his own cousins. His four relatives claimed Sherman owed them a stake in Apotex because it had been founded with the sale of the late father's business. While Sherman had financially supported them throughout their lives, they claimed this was not a kindness, but a scheme to make the cousins depend on him and to keep them from learning about their rights to the business. Sherman won the case and promptly withdrew millions of dollars that he had provided to his cousins. I did everything I could to help them, Sherman said in 2017, just months before he died. כמו שאתה רואים, this guy had plenty of enemies. היה לו מלא אויבים מכל הכיוונים, גם בעצם, גם בתוך המשפחתו עצמה, גם יכול להיות שהבני ילדים שלו פה נפגעו, his cousins, הוא משך מהם הרבה מאוד כספים בחזרה, שהוא היה לפני זה נותן להם. The beloved, he was also known as the beloved philanthropist. Despite his near constant family feuds, fights, and litigation, Barry Sherman remained firmly ensconced in Toronto's elite. Those who knew him say this can largely be credited to his wife, the daughter of Holocaust survivors who was born in a refugee camp in Poland. Honey Sherman was warm, charming, and universally beloved. As Honey Sherman אשתו היא הבת של ניצולי שואה מפולין. A fundraising powerhouse, she sat on the boards of more than a dozen Canadian charities. While Barry remained a frugal workaholic, Honey enjoyed the trappings of the wealth, going on ski trips with friends and shopping trips with her sister. At his 50th birthday party, Honey presented her husband with a sports car covered in a huge bow. That sounds like a great present. Always to see a car covered in a bow, that's fun, a birthday gift. In front of their assembled guests, he demanded she return the car, which she did. בעצם ברי, למרות המתנה המגניבה, החליט שהיא צריכה להחזיר את האוטו. He didn't like the gift. Says he was a frugal by nature. מה זה אומר frugal? הוא היה מאוד חסכוני, אפשר להגיד את זה ככה. לא רוצה להגיד קמצני, לא מילה נכונה, אבל let's say frugal. He was, like to save, if we could say it that way. But by 2017, Honey had finally convinced her husband it was time to enjoy their fortune. They put their Toronto mansion on the market and set about building their dream home. At an estimated cost, let's say of around $30 million, Honey planned for a new estate in the posh neighborhood of Forest Hill, featuring a central swimming pool with a retractable skylight and living quarters for staff. But the Shermans would never get to move in, הם בעצם לא הספיקו אפילו לעבור לבית הזה. עכשיו בוא נדבר קצת על הימים האחרונים המוזרים, the strange final days of the Shermans, of Barry and Honey Sherman. In the days leading up to the murders, the Shermans' behavior struck the people who knew them as a little odd. Honey failed to show up to a charity board meeting, highly unusual for the punctual and reliable philanthropist. She was always on time and always there like a Swiss clock. The CEO of the charity sent her an email asking if she was okay, and she responded that she was dealing with some stuff that is strange already in itself. זה כבר נראה מוזר, היא כבר כתבה, ענתה אימייל, לא הגיעה לכל מיני התרמות, וגם ענתה למנכ"ל שהיא בעצם dealing with some stuff, יש לה כל מיני דברים שהיא כרגע צריכה לפתור. Given a packed social calendar and the stress of building an ambitious new home, no one gave it much more thought. אנשים לא חשבו את המידע הזה, ובצדק. היה לה social life מאוד פעיל, היה לה בית שהיא הייתה בונה שהוא ענק. These things are stressful and take time. The next day, on December 13th, the couple was spotted looking over blueprints for the new house and at the Apotek's headquarters, the Apotek's החברה שלהם, before heading home for the evening. Barry sent one email that night to an employee about a one minor work matter and then fell silent. This insomniac workaholic, מה זה insomniac? insomniac זה בן אדם שמתקשה לישון, לא מצליח להירדם, שלא מצליח לישון. Workaholics זה כמובן בן אדם שעובד כל הזמן. The insomniac workaholic usually sent a string of emails into the early hours of the morning. This would be the last time anyone heard from the Shermans. He didn't show up for work the next day, but given the famously frugal businessman refused to hire a driver, personal assistant, or bodyguard, his movements were always somewhat mysterious. בגלל שהוא היה מפורסם בחסכונות שלו, לא היה לו נהג, לא היה לו עוזר או עוזרת אישי, לא היה לו שומר ראש, ותמיד הזוזות שלו היו תמיד, אפשר לקרוא לזה, mysterious. On December 15th, Ellie Stern brought the prospective buyers to the house and let herself in with a key to the Shermans had left her in a lockbox. She'd be told that Honey would be on holiday in Florida and Barry would be at work. After taking the potential buyers on a tour of the home's 5 bedrooms, tennis court, and sauna, she suggested a peek at one of the property's more luxurious flourishes. In the basement, the Shermans had had a pool and a hot tub so they could swim even in the depths of Toronto's harsh winters. And some of the beds in the basement, so even if it's really, really cold, they could still go for a swim and be in the hot tub. News of the murders rocked Canada as police descended on the state. A tangle of wild theories spread throughout Toronto's high society and pharmaceutical industry. There had long been whispers of tax havens and murky business deals. Had the couple fallen victim to a disgruntled employee, one of the many enemies Barry Sherman had made during his unmerciful rise to power? The day after the bodies were found, there were many reports that the police were basically probing that Barry had murdered Honey before taking his own life. So one theory was that Barry בעצם הרג את אשתו, ואז he killed himself, הרג את עצמו. The story outraged the children, outrages בין לחלוטין את הילדים שלו. They said it at the time, אמרו בזמנם, we are shocked and think it's irresponsible. The police sources have reportedly advised the media of a theory which neither the family, the friends, and the colleagues believed to be true. Concerned that Toronto police were out of their depth. מה זה אומר out of their depth? הם היו לא בעומק הנכון, זאת אומרת, out of their depth, להגיד שהם כאילו בעמוקים. מה זה אומר בעברית? איך אני יכול להסביר לכם את זה? זה אומר שהם לא היה להם מושג לגבי מה שהם עושים, שהתיק הזה היה גדול עליהם. המשפחה, הילדים של ברי והני שרמן בעצם חששו שהמשטרה לא יכולה להתמודד עם המקרה הזה. So what did they do? מה הם עשו? They hired their own experts who went through the evidence and conducted a second autopsy of the bodies. There were no signs of forced entry, but the family pointed out that a window was found open and a door unlocked. Marks on the body suggested that they had the wrist bound with zip ties, and the pathologist concluded Honey had likely been killed in another part of the house and dragged down to the pool. 6 weeks after their deaths, Toronto police ruled out Barry as a suspect and confirmed they were treating the case as a double homicide, רוצח כפול. They were complicated people, Jonathan Sherman told police in documents later filed to Canadian courts. But as weeks drifted into months and the months drifted into years, the case remained shrouded in mystery. On the 4th anniversary of the deaths, police released CC footage of a man walking Okay, in the streets, a neighbor's security camera captured a person with an unusual gait, זאת אומרת, עם הליכה מוזרה, who trudged through the snow to and from the Sherman house at the time they were killed. בעצם הלך עם הליכה מוזרה לבית של השרמנים והחוצה מהבית. וזה קרה בזמן שאומרים שהרגו את השרמנים. זה קרה באותו זמן. אבל בעצם, this lead, like all others, grew cold. לא הצליחו לאתר את הבן אדם, אז לא הביא לשום מקום. שאלה now, the question is, could a $35 million reward unveil the killer? In the years since the murders, a rift has developed between Barry and Honey's children. Their only son, Jonathan, told the Toronto Star in 2021 that he is no longer in touch with his sister Alex because she accused him of involvement in the crime. Just 2 weeks before his death, Barry had asked his son, Jonathan, to pay back a $50 million loan to help him through some short-term cash flow issues. I'm not going to kill my dad because he needs $15 million to get through a crisis. This is what Jonathan told the paper in 2021. I was not involved. הוא אמר באופן חד משמעי שלא היה לו שום קשר למקרה של הרצח. In his will בצבא שלו, Barry directed his trustees to evenly distribute his estimated $3.2 billion fortune among his 4 children. They have subsequently sold Apotex, ומאז מכרו את החברת פארמה Apotex, raised the family home where their parents died, and sold off the block of land. But Jonathan and Alex have separately employed private security guards to tell them wherever they go in case their parents' killer comes for them next. הם עדיין חיים בפחד שמשרק תורים שלהם יגיע אליהם בסוף. Toronto police have declined to comment on the accusations made within the Sherman family, saying only that several persons have been implicated שהם עוקבים אחרי כמה אנשים במקרה. אבל עד עכשיו, to date, there's no evidence to elevate any of the aforementioned parties to the status of a suspect. This is according to the police. הם לא הצליחו לשים את אף מהמשפחה כרגע בתור חשוד ברצח. On the 5th anniversary of the murders, the siblings issued separate statements pleading for answers. My parents deserve to enjoy the fruits of the labor, Jonathan Sherman said in December when he increased the reward to $35 million. He said, I continue to miss my parents more than I can describe, and I'm forever haunted by what happened to them. Alex, the daughter, but made no mention of her brother as she paid tribute to their mother and father. The horrific manner in which they were taken from us has been extremely traumatic, she said. My heart is broken. My loss is immeasurable. My children have lost their grandparents. We miss their guidance, love, and wisdom. So this is the very sad story of Barry and Honey Sherman, משפחה יהודית מקנדה מיליארדרים שנרצחו באופן סופר חשוד. הרצח עדיין פתוח. This murder mystery is still open and there is a $35 million reward. So if you listen to this and in a highly unlikely matter that you have information, well, there is a huge reward there. And obviously this family is seeking for closure. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this interesting podcast about the Sherman, the very tragic story of the Sherman family. I was happy to share it. We had lots of new vocabulary. אם יש דברים שלא ברורים לגבי אוצר מילים, היה פה הרבה אוצר מילים מתקדם, שיכולתם כמובן להאזין ולהבין, ויש משהו שלא הבנתם, בבקשה תכתבו לנו באימייל info@שפות-שלי.co.il, או תיצרו איתנו קשר בוואטסאפ 053-550-1976. In any case, you guys wanted to discuss new topics, raise new issues, tell new stories, or just, bring in maybe new grammatical concepts that we haven't covered, שלא עברנו להם בפודקאסטים הקודמים, בבקשה תכתבו לנו וצרו קשר, אנחנו תמיד נשמח. So have a great week. Keep improving your English learning language. We obviously teach at שפות-שלי, אנחנו מלמדים בשפות-שלי, קורסים 1-על-1 ברמה הכי גבוהה בעולם. I'm happy to be here and I will be here again next week. שלכם שבוע מדהים ומוצלח. תודה רבה, אני אריאל. I'll see you guys next week. Have an awesome and productive day. Bye bye.